the connecting what you stand for
Yes.
back to what you do, that two-way connection can also make all the difference. So we're talking a lot about the, what you do piece in terms of seeing your people, but like having that thing you stand for.
Yes.
And knowing what that is, that is so huge, because that's like the energy you bring. And then knowing your people in this deeper level brings the care, and then connecting that to, how you can actually serve and why you're a part of this bigger picture. Like being able to communicate and convey all of that is so, so powerful.
Welcome, Badass Manifester. I am so glad you are here. I'm your host and head coach, Ashley Gordon, master mindset and manifestation biz expert, founder of the Quantum Coaching certification, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur obsessed with empowering you to create quantum leaps in your energy, your life, and your business. This is the show to help you make magic your everyday normal, where the ripple effect is real and the guest experts are world class. My mission is to power your conscious and subconscious mind with manifestation teachings, business tools, and coaching techniques to put your potential into action. Consider this your weekly up level. Are you ready for quantum transformation? Let's do this. What's up, my badass manifesting family? We're back with another episode with an incredible guest that I cannot wait to share with you. And before I do, I just wanted to check in, say hey, say what's up. It's 75 degrees here in New Jersey, and we really needed that. Like the sunshine on my face, on my body. Oh, it feels so good. So I'm really excited to share with you our special guest today. Her name is Adria Decorte, and she's a copywriter, and she is a mentor to messengers. She helps women leaders tap into their message that moves them and then clearly and courageously share it so that they can call in their people and their next level of impact. She is kind of a big deal. She was a TedX speaker. She's the host of the Unforgettable Podcast. She's the creator of the Messenger Archetype quiz, which you guys are going to hear all about. And she's just a really strong messenger to share with other entrepreneurs, coaches, female leaders who have a message to share and help them share it. And copywriting is something that I wish that I knew about earlier in my business. I'm really excited to share more about copywriting with you guys, because we haven't really covered anything like this in the podcast, and Adria has a really good looking at bringing together your mission as a messenger along with actually talking to your people. So getting you connected to the type of messenger you are for the world and how to speak that to your people and share that with your people. So it's going to be really, really good. And I think you're going to like it. So make sure you leave us your review and make sure you tag us as you listen, because we want to be part of your real-time journey. You know how we roll. So I can't wait. I will see you guys inside the show, inside the episode. Love y'all. Welcome, Adria, to the show. So excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Ashley.
Yes, awesome. So just for everyone to kind of really dive into your energy and know what you're about, can you start us off and just share how you got to where you are and what made you niche into helping women really step into the messenger that they're here to be? Like, how did you come into that?
Oh, what a good question. So for me, I would say that the big turning point in that was when I did my TEDx talk and realized in just the creating of it and the auditioning for it and the process of, speaking it and people coming up to me afterwards, that I realized and had up close and personal the experience of being a messenger for an idea and creating all of the pieces that would help move people to understand that idea and move people to take action around it and all those things. And so I really think that was probably the big jumping off point, that after that point, I started supporting other people around their messaging, being clear on it, and also around being a messenger. And I can remember pretty early on when I first started speaking, having talks that I would give and kind of looking out into the audience and locking eyes with someone in the crowd and kind of being able to feel the shift happen in them as I was sharing. And as someone who grew up painfully shy, like even being on a stage and doing that huge recognition of, oh, my message is creating change and I can stand for that message, and I don't have to be a certain, way in order to give it. I can be shy and I can support people. And I think all those little pieces came together to really influence me wanting to show up for messengers, whoever they were, help them clarify what they're saying and help them really step into their way of being a leader and a messenger and a thought leader in the world.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And yeah, you guys, Adria is a TEDx speaker, so she's kind of a big deal. No, I think that's so cool. I really, that I think that's cool. And you're so accomplished in the realm of speaking and helping people hone their message and their gifts. And I think it's really interesting, and it's a good point to make that, your direction isn't necessarily linear, right? I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll start my business, I'll have really good copy, I'll figure out the messenger that I am, and then I'll do speaking and TED Talks and all those things, right? And you kind of like just jumped into the speaking arena and then realized like, oh, I actually want to teach people about this. I don't know. Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, that is so, yep. That's so right. My TEDx talk was in 2015. So it's been 5 years at the time we're recording this. And so I totally jumped in with a message to share. At the time I had kind of, I guess, the first versions of my online business that I was doing in the world, which was more around supporting business owners around like their self-care and wellness. In my TEDx talk with how food fuels hustle. And so there was like a lot of those elements in my message back then. And that was what kind of like propelled me to start speaking on that and to audition for big opportunities and all that kind of stuff. But in the years since, there's been huge transitions in, even that's just a transition in, okay, I know that this is my calling to help people directly with their messaging, directly with how they're showing up in their business as a messenger. Like that was a huge shift that I couldn't have foreseen. And I'm not even, in the last few years, I haven't even really been doing speaking. So
wow.
I just love the online space. Even in the last couple years, I know we've talked about this, I've been doing a lot more copywriting and behind the scenes pieces. And so, I think there's been this huge, both evolution, but also just shifting into whatever was aligned for me at that time, and knowing that I'm an evolving human and that might keep changing, like what I need my business to look like and be structured as, and how much forward facing I feel like doing or how much behind the scenes I feel like doing is going to keep shifting. And I get to keep like having my finger on the pulse of like what it is that feels good for me.
Yes. And I get that vibe from you so much. You're so committed to staying true to what feels good to you. And that's really inspiring. So thank you for that energy in the world. So I'm curious, to hear from a copywriter's perspective of okay. So when I first started my business, I had no idea how important copywriting was. Let's just start there. I had no idea. And I know on your podcast, you guys, just so you know, Adria has a beautiful podcast. It's called the Unforgettable Podcast. So go check that out. But I know on your podcast, we talked about how like I started my business with this mission, and that was my message. And I just didn't know how important it was to actually chunk it down to like be specific and talk to people. Can you just speak a little bit on how important you feel that stuff is in terms of, attracting clients and like what your journey was in discovering that for your own business?
Yeah. So first I want to like share in terms of my clients, and then I can share a little bit of my own journey with that. So one of the things that I have found in working with people around their messaging and really, and I'm a copywriter, but I'm also a messaging coach,
Yes.
like many different facets
Yes.
of all of this around messaging and messengers and all of that. So I have like, I guess, a unique perspective on things. But one of the things that often over the years when people have come to me, it's been like this sense of not feeling fully solid and grounded in their messaging and in what it is they stand for, in connecting with their people. They feel like nobody, like it's kind of not landing for people, or like people aren't resonating. It's not moving them to action. What they're saying, that people maybe are price shopping or don't really see the value in their work. And so a lot of times in the past, like that's when people have come to me for support around their messaging. And so that's one of the beauties of clarifying your messaging, clarifying how you're communicating about what you do, what it is you stand for, how that's woven into everything. So you're getting known for something, and so that people can kind of self-identify and know that you're talking to them. And so a lot of times what happens for people is when they aren't clear on those pieces and don't know how to communicate them in a way that resonates both for themselves and for their people, then it can be a lot harder to grow. It can be a lot harder to like reach the impact they want to reach, or to call in the people they want to call in. And so that's one of the big, I guess, elements of messaging, that it's not that you can't build a business. It's just that once you lock those pieces into place, things move faster and clearer, and it's clear what to do next, and people know you're talking to them. And so I would say for myself, in my own story, there have been times, so very early on, and probably maybe a year into my business, I led a one-day event, and I spent months leading up to that event. Like, it was an in-person live. I live in Las Vegas. It was here in Las Vegas. Awesome. And I, got sponsors and had people donating food to the event, and got speakers, and did all the marketing to get people to show up live. And the day of the event, I had like 63 people in the room, which felt like really huge to me, like a big success from the outside. And then, I led the event, and at the end of the event, I ended up getting no clients, like made no money beyond the seats, like butts and seats, which, barely covered costs. So, and one of my speakers ended up having a list full of 10 potential clients that she took away with her. And that was, I think, a big moment for me in recognizing the power in being super clear about what I stood for, how to communicate, what I did, how to communicate the value in what I did, so that people would actually want to take that next step, versus me just sharing content and just, showing up, which are really powerful things. But without that extra added element, that was the big difference between me and that speaker. And
wow.
Yeah, it's like my own event. And so I think that was like one of the moments that sticks out for me in terms of my own journey with messaging. And even though messaging is a very natural thing for me now, and I think it's maybe a natural way I go about business, I think in my businesses, in my different iterations of business, the brand part, like the clarity of the brand and the messaging communication, and like those different things have always been the areas I've excelled. But even with that, it's still something I had to learn. It's still something I had to like have the experience of being like, oh, okay, I do need that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
This is like such a powerful example. Thank you for sharing that, because it couldn't be a more perfect example. Like that was good feedback for you, right? You're like, oh, snap. Like, because I think a lot of people, if that would like that's happened to me in the past with something of like launching a course and then not having anybody enroll for it, and it's like very similar where but I immediately doubted myself when it actually has nothing to do with you and who you are. It's just about shaping the content to land with who it needs with who it needs to land with, right?
Yeah. And so now when I'm supporting people who've kind of been in that space where they feel like things aren't landing, now one of the first things we do is really get a deeper level clarity on their people in a way that, instead of kind of observing their people, and having more of like a demographic level of like, oh yeah, they're like self-identifying as women and they're
Right.
in this age range, more of like the deeper level
of
right, exactly. So one of the first things we do is like go so much deeper in, okay, what are they waking up worrying about, and how are they moving through their day, and how is this affecting their work life and their family life, and so we start to like go that deeper layer, and that's work I do when I have a new copywriting client too, and we're starting off, and we want to create a website, or we want to create sales emails, or like whatever it is. Like the starting place in like creating more of that connection and resonance is going deeper, and so when you start sharing from that place, it's your people feel really seen, and you have more of a connection to them too.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. So can I just ask you what you were going through internally when that happened after your event?
Oh, oh man. I think that if I were to like time travel back to that point, because now it's been maybe 6 years or so, I was just in a space of, I think that I hadn't had expectations even of what it could do for me, and I think that it was more of the moment where I saw one of the speakers that I had brought in to speak at my event, when I saw kind of her clipboard full of names and mine empty. I think that was the moment that I recognized, oh, I think that there was something maybe I could have been doing here, or, thinking about actually, how do I create something with the end in mind? How do I look at where people need to be by the end to take that next step? Because I can help them so much more if they work with me privately, or if they work with me in my groups, or if we work together in some capacity. And,
oh my God, yeah.
And I think that it was more of like a recognition of like, oh, I was just trying to get through putting together an event,
Right, of course.
And being a budding baby entrepreneur at the time. And I think there was a lot of like, I got sick immediately after, which
Wow.
I'm sure is like something, that's something that kind of like happens. You put all this energy into something, you don't take care of yourself, and then you have the backlash of that. So I got this big cold, and it was like laid out for a week. And I think I was just like really discouraged, and just really feeling like, is this for me? What am I doing here? Yeah. Like,
was the girl that had the clipboard full of names, was she super niched?
And she was, yeah. So she was a plant-based nutritionist, and
super
she had
specific.
Yeah, specific. And she had come in and done a talk. Like, I had brought her in to do a talk around nutrition. And so it was just like a 1-hour talk she did versus like me leading the entire event. But I didn't have a lot of thought towards how I fit in to the event, and how I would communicate about the value of working together, and what I would support them with, and even really who it was that I should be calling in and talking to. And yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
so
since
interesting.
then, those are those are big parts of everything I do.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. You had to go through that, I feel like, to get to like how you serve people now and the messenger that you are for others now, which we're totally going to get into. But just on this note, because I think this is so valuable to so many people, I know a lot of spiritual coaches listen to this podcast, and a lot of, law of attraction coaches and life coaches in general. And I think that it's really challenging sometimes for them to get the traction that they're looking for, because the transformation that they provide is so broad, and it's so like, I'm going to help you get peace, and I'm going to help you get confidence. And I think like really honing on your message could help these specific coaches and entrepreneurs really just be more magnetic in their marketing through
Yes.
being a more targeted messenger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. Like often, and I know we're going to probably talk more about my messenger archetypes, but often people who are life coaches or healers or spiritual leaders in some way are often what I call the free spirit messenger archetype. And then, there's often a challenge of sharing about what you do and sharing your message and sharing about your work and your mission and your people and all these different things in a way that's really grounded and concrete, where people like actually know what you're talking about. Like they're not scratching their heads like, what is she saying? Or where they get it, they can visualize it. It makes them feel something because it's really specific. Yeah, it can be
it's more tangible.
Tangible. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, Adria has this beautiful quiz on her website, and it's the messenger archetype quiz, and it helps you identify what kind of messenger you are, because we all are one, and it can really help you hone your message. So can you just share about, how did you come up with this, and let's just talk a little bit about these different messengers so people that are listening can relate and really, give them some nuggets to implement in their messaging right now.
Yeah. Okay. So this whole messenger archetype system, and then the quiz to help you kind of identify which one you're dominant in, it came up from years of leading my messenger masterminds, where I would have clients and there would be these themes that were coming up over and over again in what ways they were showing up that maybe were creating disconnection between them and their people, or that their messaging was a little bit like tougher for them, or there was just these different themes, like 5 different patterns that were happening over and over again. And so those patterns became the messenger archetypes, because what I realized is a lot of times we look at people who are successful in our field and we see them as a leader, we see them as a messenger, and then we think that in order to be successful or in order to be that leader, we need to do things the way that they do it. But really, we just need to do we need to show up in our own way.
Yes. And that was so me in the beginning. That was so me.
Yeah, and me too. Yes. And I think it's such a common thing, and it's so normal. And sometimes we don't see role models who show up in the way that we show up. And so we think there's something wrong with our way of showing up. And so I created the archetype system so that people could kind of have see like role models, or see an example and understand like, this is how my dominant way of showing up is, and that's okay, to be able to give permission to be whoever they are as a messenger. And so I can break down each of the archetypes a little bit.
I would love that.
And for listeners, as you're listening, notice which ones maybe you resonate with, and there might be a couple, and that's totally cool. You might be a combination of a little bit, because none of us are all one thing. So, okay. So the first one is the expressive, and the expressive has so much passion for their work and what they have to say. They rarely are left without anything to say. And they might, share so much and have so many different pieces of things to say that the true message, the true thing that they want to get across gets lost in all of that. So that can be kind of the shadow side of the expressive. And I'm dominant in the expressive. And the last round of my mastermind round, everyone in it was an expressive, which was so interesting. We all had a lot to say. And
isn't that interesting that that's who you attracted into your mastermind?
Similar
messengers. Yeah.
And cool. But the round before it, I had mostly the sensitive soul in it. And
wow.
It's very interesting. I have like different almost themes each time. It's so interesting. I don't know if you noticed that with your own mastermind, that you attract
cool.
like different cohorts that have different vibes.
Yeah, for sure. Every time. Totally.
Yeah. So, okay. So then the sensitive soul, and I'm kind of, I would say, co-dominant in the expressive and the sensitive soul myself. So the sensitive soul is the messenger whose superpower is empathy. Like they care so much. They are, they're just that. They're sensitive. And like the shadow side of that can be kind of second guessing what they put out there, whether it's like a social media post or, on a call or whatever it is, or kind of being really slow to share. But at the same time, they have so much heart in what they're doing.
Hold up while I sip my Organifi green juice real quick. Yes, Todd and I have been drinking our juice. We've been good boys and girls. And I want to remind you to drink your juice. If you have not yet had your juice today, or you haven't yet ordered your Organifi greens, what you waiting for? They are so good, so delicious. If you are ready to reset, return the body to homeostasis, if you're ready to reduce your cravings, if you're ready for micronutrients to help you infuse more superfoods for your body to feel more energized, more vital, and let's be real, just better about yourself because you're drinking something green in the morning, Organifi green juice is for you. If you're not into green juice, I do highly recommend just trying it. But they also have other juices, some that are more sweet. They really do have you covered from sunrise to sunset. They have a juice for morning, noon, and night. And if you want 15% off, I got you covered, boo. Just go to my link, www.organifi.com/manifestwithash, manifestwithash. I gotta spell it out because it's a podcast. Just go to Manifest with Ash and you'll get 15% off. You'll feel amazing. You're going to feel like you're improving your total well-being, and I think you're going to love the taste. So if you're ready for some moringa, some chlorella, some spirulina, some beetroot, some matcha green tea, some wheatgrass, some ashwagandha, turmeric, lemon juice, coconut water, it's all in there and it's all waiting for you. So go right now. I can't wait. And let me know how you love it.
And then we have the Inspirer. And the Inspirer is maybe what you would typically think of as like the influencer. Like they've created this audience around having this life or business or relationship or whatever it is that other people aspire to have. Like they might be on someone's vision board. They might be, what other people want to get to. And then the shadow side of that can often be that then they feel a little bit handcuffed to show up in the way that their people expect them to show up. So whether that's like always high vibe, or whether that's always kind of like kick ass, or whether that's always like grounded and level, like whatever it is, they kind of feel like if they don't show up this certain way, if they don't always like maybe paint a perfect picture or whatever that is, then they'll lose followers or their people won't buy from them.
Yeah. And that's totally me.
Yeah. And I know when you took the quiz, like that's what you came up as. So
yeah.
It's so interesting. Right. And then we have the free spirit. And so the free spirit is kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where what they do, and all the things that they really care about are maybe a little bit more spiritual or esoteric or woo or harder to pin down into concrete language that's visual. And so people can be left scratching their heads or not thinking they're talking to them, not really getting it. And then that can hold them back, even though what they have to say is so beautiful. And then,
wow.
yeah. And then finally, we have the tactician messenger archetype. And the tactician is more of the giving all the steps. So sometimes this is like nutritionists, sometimes it's like web designers or health coaches. And so they're like used to being the teacher and being the expert. And like their superpower is to be seen as the expert, to be seen as the authority. And then the shadow side can often be that then when they're sharing, there's not a lot of emotional resonance and connection. It's kind of a little more dry, and there's not that perspective and that like passionate point that pulls people in.
Wow. I feel like everybody listening is probably like, that's me. No, that's me. No, that's me. I think that, like you said in the beginning, we're all a little bit of everything. And it's important, I think, to honor that and not, you don't have to, like, it's okay to be a little bit of everything. Right.
Yeah, totally. And I think, so I have a quiz on my website at messengerquiz.com that if you're listening, you can go and actually take the quiz and get like what you are dominant in, and then get a series of kind of like your best next steps in order to cultivate that, in order to use your superpower, in order to like make everything clearer and cleaner and more powerful and show up as you. So I think that's still a great, like it's still really powerful knowing what you're dominant in, because it gives you a starting place to start claiming who you are as a messenger. And it's also powerful to recognize, hey, I think I have a little sub like tactician in me, as well as like being the free spirit, which is an interesting combo, by the way.
Yeah, right.
And so that can also like give you an extra nuance of like, okay, so that's kind of cool that I have these different elements in me and how I show up.
And for me, knowing that I'm the inspire and knowing like the things to watch out for the inspire, I can work with that. And I can say, okay, I don't have to show up and be super high vibe today if I'm not. And that's okay. And allow myself to be it more in my authentic truth, because I know what kind of messenger I am.
Yeah. Yes. There's so much self-permission within this. There's so much, so much permission. Beautiful. I think permission can be underrated, but often it's really what we need in order to step out and show up.
So true. It's so freaking true. Man, I wish someone wrote me a big permission slip 4 years ago. I had to write one myself. Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because, recently I was at my friend's mastermind event and I got up to speak and everybody seemed to know who I was. And I think I may have told you this, but, everyone knew who I was, like just from social media, but they didn't know how I could help them. And so I went up there and before I spoke, I was like, well, you all seem to know who I am, but do you know how I can serve you? And it was like dead silent. And I was just like, wow, that's really, really good feedback. And so it really put me back to the drawing board of like, what kind of messenger do I want to be for the world? And how do I want my content to land? And if it's not landing, then how can I really make it more impactful and more potent? And I'm just wondering, like, could you share some tips on, once someone knows the messenger that they are, how can they turn that into serving their people?
Yeah. So I think with the archetypes themselves, then there's kind of a little bit of a personalization piece based on which archetype. But I would say in general that often when we're wanting to kind of clarify what we're saying, wanting it to land more solidly and wanting to connect what we stand for to the work people can pay us for, I think often that's something that doesn't get pulled into account. Then a first step can often be what we were talking about earlier, in taking a moment to connect on a deeper level with your people, to like maybe close your eyes and get kind of get into an internally centered place, maybe feet on the ground, hands resting on the lap, and breathing a little bit, and then seeing your people in your mind's eye, moving through their day with them, seeing what happens, seeing, you know, how they're feeling at different points in their day, and what they're worried about, and what they, if they allow themselves to dream, what do they just really wish for and crave, and starting to just get into that place where you are channeling your people, and then capturing that, getting that journaling in, whatever it is, and starting there with that deeper level of clarity that starts to create the connection. And a lot of times the parts that, when we're sharing, that don't resonate or connect, are often the parts where we're not being specific. The parts where we're creating generalizations, or we're using broad terms, or, you know, using more flowery language, like connect to your heart, speak your truth, like that kind of thing, or just like a broad overall, like lumping everyone into like one phrase or something. And a lot of times what we can start doing is, if we're visualizing our people, then we can see what they're actually doing. And so some of our messaging might turn into actual specific visual things, like you wake up in the morning, and then you hit the snooze button, and then you lie there for a while because there's nothing about your day you're excited about. Or you go on a date, but you don't really think that this person is going to go anywhere, or you worry that they don't even like you, or like there's certain things that we start to like share it and say it, that our messaging becomes more clear, and more like our people feel seen, more honed in. And so oftentimes that's actually the most powerful place you can start. And that's that. Creating that connection with your people, and also like you're seeing your people. That can be a really powerful place to start. And also knowing what you want for your people, knowing what you really stand for. And you can do some journaling around, I believe blank, I believe blank, I believe blank. Just, you know, set a timer for 5 minutes and just like write everything about
that you believe,
what you stand for in your industry. Like those can be some powerful places to start, so that you have that depth and that clarity.
Yeah, I love, this is such a good starting point. It's really, you guys, this is how you become the expert. You become the expert by being so good at being inside someone's head and heart, and knowing their deepest desires and knowing their deepest fears. And not just saying like, oh, you have fear that you're never going to meet your soulmate. It's more so like Adria was saying, like chunking it down and being like, you're going on the 5th date at the same restaurant with a different guy, and you know like that this isn't the person for you, but you wore your nice dress anyway. Like really, really specific stuff that like is real life stuff, you know?
Right. Because even just hearing that, like there's emotion attached to that, you know?
Right.
There's a certain like a thud of emotion that comes along with that specificity. Yeah.
Yes. If I wish more than anything I could have learned this sooner in my business, because I think that I would have, I would have grown faster, to be honest. But it doesn't matter. Like I'm on my perfect path. You're on your perfect path. And if you're hearing this, really connecting to like, well, I feel like people might be saying, well, how do I connect with my people? How do I connect with my people? Just like Adria was saying, and I love it, just really tuning in, getting quiet, getting still, and seeing them in your mind's eye and following them throughout their day, knowing with what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with, what they're happy about. Like that is so powerful. I'm so glad you said that. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because like a lot of times, I mean, in my masterminds, I will have people actually going out and having conversations with their people, and a lot of coaches like assign that as part of this. But really what
Yeah.
I've found is we know, like we know our people. We, if we've been, dreaming of this for a while, like often our people is us or an earlier
Mm-hmm.
version of us. So just being able to tap in and channel that can be a really powerful exercise.
Yeah, totally. And something else that came up, like one of the ladies in my mastermind, it was really challenging for her to get this concept of, really talking to specifically her ideal client and her ideal, person. And she had a post on her Instagram, and it was a post of her. It was a really strong picture, and she was like, confidence. And she basically like defined confidence, and the picture really emanated confidence. But there was no story to it. There was nothing personal about her. It was just a definition of confidence. And how do you want to be more confident in your life? And I screenshot it and I sent it to her and I said, do me a favor. Tell me a story about how you got that confident.
Mm.
And she didn't understand what I was trying to do at first, but then she kind of got it afterwards. And I was like, that story is going to land with more people than just defining the word confidence and then asking people how they can be more confident. Right?
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like the word confidence gets thrown out a lot for like in messaging and in storytelling. And it's like, but how did they get there?
Yeah. I think words like confidence, yeah, that's absolutely such a good example of some of the things that when we kind of categorize, and then it's like this means something something different to different people,
So true.
and and so when people read that, or when you're sharing, you're saying like I help people with confidence, then it doesn't actually end up meaning anything to anyone. There's not that like visceral
Right.
emotional connection, like when you were sharing the example of like being at the restaurant for the fifth time with a different guy. Like there was like this, I felt this emotional energy around it. And so
Right.
that's where we like start to like notice, where are we using generalizations like that, and how can we actually define what we mean by it
Mm-hmm.
in with story, with visual examples, with like
Yeah.
these things that create connection.
Yeah. And I think a lot of new coaches are people that have been through really challenging circumstances and they come out on the other side confident. And they're like, I just want to help people feel confident because that's what I feel now. And I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. And if that's you and you're listening, that's beautiful. Keep that desire to want to help people, and think about the ways in which you, like how specifically do you want to help people feel confident, right? Because like you said, everyone has a different internal representation. So if I'm reading something and I say, oh, you can be confident, X, Y, and Z, I might think like, oh, I can look in the mirror and feel confident in my body. Or someone else might think, oh, I can feel confident talking to a guy. You know what I mean? Like everybody
Mm-hmm.
is having a different experience. So just no generalizations. It's really good.
And one of the things that starts to happen there too is that as you start to do that, your people get more specific naturally, because you're defining what that confidence is to you. And
Mm-hmm.
so then you discover, oh, I'm actually supporting people around this, with guys, or actually I'm supporting people around this when it comes to their body, or
Mm-hmm.
actually the people I'm supporting are like these people who have this specific thing going on in their life. And so you almost discover things that you kind of assumed in your brain, but you didn't realize were part of your messaging. You didn't realize, and you weren't speaking to them. And so suddenly you have all this extra level of depth, and that
Yeah.
can go into your copy. It can go into how you're communicating when you get on a Facebook Live. It can go into your understanding of your work, which influences the offerings you're creating, which influences all kinds of things, everything.
Literally everything. You want to be more magnetic, like really get this in your business. Like this is so important. It's so important. I'm working on it constantly. Like I just changed some of my stuff on my website, where my website before was like, I was just like, how long have you known that you're meant for more? Okay. That's so general. That's on every coach's website right now. Every spiritual coach has that on their website. And so now, like, I work with coaches. So I talk to coaches. I know what coaches want and need. I can layer that in. And so if you're listening to us and you're thinking, how do I know if I'm on the right track? If you have people commenting on your posts and to your emails saying you're in my head, then you know you're on the right track. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. I love this stuff now. Like, I could geek out on it because I see how powerful it is.
Yeah. And I think there's that combination too, we were talking about earlier or that I mentioned earlier, which is the connecting what you stand for back
Yes.
to what you do. Like that two-way connection can also make all the difference. So we're talking a lot about the, what you do piece in terms of seeing your people. Well, I guess seeing your people is maybe both, but like having that thing you stand for.
Yes.
And knowing what that is, that is so huge, because that's like the energy you bring. And then knowing your people in this deeper level brings the care, and then connecting that to, how you can actually serve and why you're a part of this bigger picture. Like, being able to communicate and convey all of that is so, so powerful.
So powerful. I'm so glad you said that, because that's like the magical formula.
Mm-hmm. It totally is, but in the most heart-centered, real,
Yes.
authentic, genuine, like just aligned way. Like, I think that's like the way to feel really aligned in your business.
Totally. Totally. So what would you say is your message to the world?
Oh man. I think, true to my expressive messenger archetype nature, I think true to just being a human who's a leader and is a messenger. It evolves all the time. But what is feeling so true for me right now has been that there's no one way to be a messenger, that there's no one way that we need to act or look or talk or show up, and that there's really your way. And if you don't see a role model out there for your way of being a messenger, then you are that role model.
Wow. I love that. That's so beautiful. And you do that well. Like, I feel like you're so committed to your alignment in your business and in your message that I don't know if it's always, I mean, I'm sure it hasn't always been that way for you, but what keeps you so committed to staying true to yourself?
So yeah, I feel like there's a couple of layers. So there's the staying true to myself and staying true to my people, which are connected, but also kind of have separate energies around them. So for staying true to my people, it's being able to keep connecting back to why I care so much, to why this matters so much to me. And as someone who has a lot of sensitive soul messenger archetype in her and can be, more empathic and more kind of shy and more second guessing in nature, just naturally, that is such a huge thing for me to keep reconnecting, so that I don't end up worrying too much about how something will land, or over perfectionisting something, and that I just remember that this is in service of the people I want to move. And so I want to keep sharing because of that, because I'm here for them. And if I don't share, then they won't have those shifts. And so that's, like, for me, a huge part of like continuing to show up as a messenger, continuing to do my work, continuing to be committed to my alignment. And then on a much more personal level, I notice, when I'm out of alignment, I think I would imagine maybe this is the case for a lot of your listeners, being more spiritual or more in touch or more, in their own work. But I am so sensitive, and I notice if something's out of alignment. I feel drained or sluggish, or I block things. I block clients from coming in if I'm working in a way that's not aligned for me, or if I'm talking about things that aren't exciting for me. I don't record podcast episodes. Like I just like, I am so, I notice, I'm so aware of all those things. Mm-hmm. So I think that is such a almost immediate touch point for me to always be connected back to, like, how is this feeling for me and how can I adjust things? And a lot of times I get into places where I feel a little overwhelmed, or I feel like my energy's spiraling up a little bit, or getting into anxiety. And that is my sign each time that, like, something about how I'm approaching things needs to shift.
Really good. Really, really good awareness. That's so strong. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. This was so fun. This is so good. I have to ask, because I always do, what makes you a badass manifester?
Oh, so I would say it is that sensitivity. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because this goes back to our whole conversation. For a long time, I would really judge my sensitivity as something that was quote unquote bad, or that, I needed to change or needed to overcome. And now I recognize that my sensitivity is my superpower, and it is that thing that allows me to connect deeper with my people and to be, more in their space and to bring my care. And it's also what allows me to notice if things need to shift, and to kind of like be so tuned in and hyper aware in how I'm doing things. And so I think that's like, it's what
I love that.
What allows me to manifest and create things, how I call things in the way that they need to be for me. And
yes.
Yeah.
That's so beautifully said. And I think that honoring your sensitivity and honoring it and seeing it as a gift, and having it also be your way of navigating your truth, it's so cool. It's really cool.
Thank you.
You're so cool. Everyone needs to know you and follow you. So thank you so much for being on the show today. And will you just share with everyone where they can connect with you and how they can take the quiz again? And we'll link it all up for them.
Totally. Okay. So you can go take the quiz to figure out which messenger archetype you're dominant in over at messengerquiz.com. And my podcast is my baby. You can check out episodes over there at Unforgettable Podcast. It's on your podcast app, wherever. It's also at unforgettablepodcast.com. Like if any of the things we're talking about are like resonating for you, that's my home for both the strategic and like, how to in terms of messaging and connection and all those things, and also the more internal aspects of stepping into being a messenger and what does that look like and all that, which it's so fun. And you can check out Ashley's episode of my podcast too, which will be live by the time this goes live.
Cool.
And on Instagram, my handle is Adria Decorte, ADriaDecorte. So I'd love to hear from anyone. If you want to pop in and shoot me what your takeaways are or anything. I love connecting with people.
Yes, tag us when you listen.
Oh, yes, totally.
Awesome. Thank you.
And my website is adriadecorte.com too. So, yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. She's awesome. Go find her, connect with her. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will see you guys next week. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, Ashley.
Woo. We did some work today. Thank you so much for listening. You know I love my BAM fan. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you know would love it too, because we live for the ripple effect over here. And how can you best support the show? Make sure you're subscribed, hit the 5 stars, and leave a review on iTunes, and let me know how the podcast has impacted you. I love being part of your real-time journey, so screenshot the episode and tag me and my guests on Instagram at Manifest with Ash. Now say it with me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my own energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. We don't just talk about it over here, we be about it. Now go get 'em.